Something is happening in the financial world right now that most people will completely miss, and by the time they figure it out, it will already be too late. We are talking about a window of 4 days, not 4 months, not 4 weeks, 4 days. And if you're someone who works a regular job, pays bills every month, and secretly wonders why your money never seems to grow no matter how hard you try, you need to stop everything and watch this video until the very end if you are interested in money, finance, or changing your financial future. Like this video and subscribe right now, because what you are about to learn can change the way you see money forever. Let me start with a story. His name was Daniel. He was 34 years old, worked a government job, earned a decent salary, paid rent, sent some money to his parents every month, and basically lived what most people would call a stable life. Daniel was not rich, but he was not desperate either. He was just ordinary. He saved a little here, spent a little there, and told himself that one day things would get better. One day he would invest. One day he would start building real wealth. But that one day kept getting pushed forward. And one afternoon, scrolling through his phone during lunch break, Daniel stumbled onto a news headline about silver. He laughed it off. Silver? That is what your grandmother keeps in a cabinet. That is old jewelry and spoons. What does silver have to do with modern money or financial freedom? He was wrong. And I am about to show you exactly how wrong he was. And more importantly, why the next 4 days might be the most financially important stretch of time you have had in years. But before I get to that, I need you to understand something that the financial media almost never explains honestly. Because if you do not understand this first, the silver story will not make sense. And most people skip this part. Most people just see a flashy headline, get excited, do nothing, and then wonder why they are still broke 5 years later. Here's the thing about money that nobody teaches you in school. Money does not stay still. It moves. It flows. It goes from people who are not paying attention to people who are. Every single day, wealth is being transferred, quietly, invisibly. And the only difference between the people on the receiving end and the people on the losing end is information. That is it. Just information. And more importantly, the willingness to act on it at the right time. And right now, the information is pointing at one thing: silver. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, I have heard this before. Gold and silver, precious metals, blah, blah, blah. But stick with me here, because what is happening with silver right now is not the usual story. This is not some slow, boring, hedge against inflation conversation. This is something that is building like pressure under a dam. And in the next 4 days, according to multiple market indicators, technical signals, and real-world supply data, that dam might crack open. Let me explain this simply, because I promised you no confusing finance language. Imagine you have a factory that makes electric cars. To build those cars, you need a specific part. Let us call it a conductor chip. Without this chip, the car cannot function. Now imagine that the world only has a limited supply of this chip, and suddenly every car company on the planet is racing to build electric vehicles at the same time. What happens to the price of that chip? It goes up, fast, because demand is exploding while supply is limited. That is economics at its most basic. Now replace the conductor chip with silver, because silver is not just a shiny metal you put in a ring. Silver is one of the most electrically conductive materials on Earth. It is in your smartphone, it is in solar panels, it is in electric vehicles, it is in medical equipment, it is in satellites, it is in every piece of advanced technology that is driving the future of this planet. And here is the part that will make your jaw drop. Global silver demand has been outpacing supply for 3 consecutive years. 3 years in a row, the world has been using more silver than it is producing. And most people have absolutely no idea this is happening. But what changed in the last few days, and this is where it gets urgent, is a convergence of signals that professional traders watch very closely. And I will get to exactly what those signals are in just a moment. But first, I need to tell you about something that makes this moment even more significant. Because this is not just about silver alone. There is a bigger story here that connects to everything you feel about your financial life right now. Think about the last time you got a raise at work. Now think about whether that raise actually made you feel richer. For most people, and studies back this up, the answer is no. The raise comes in, the lifestyle adjusts slightly, and somehow, at the end of the month, the bank account looks almost identical to before. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is one of the invisible traps that keeps working people working forever without ever building real wealth. You earn more, you spend more, and the gap between you and financial freedom stays exactly the same. But here is the uncomfortable truth that changes everything. The problem is not your salary. The problem is not your spending habits. The real problem is that you're playing a game where the rules are designed to keep you participating as a consumer, not as an investor. Because consumers spend money and investors grow it. And the moment you shift even a small part of your financial behavior from consumer to investor, everything begins to change. Silver, right now, is one of the most accessible entry points into that investor mindset. And I am not saying this to hype you up. I am saying this because the numbers, the data, and the market timing are all converging in a way that does not happen often. Let me walk you through what is actually happening in the market right now. For the past several months, silver has been trading in what traders call a compression zone. Think of it like a coiled spring. The price goes up a little, comes down a little, goes up, comes down, and each time it moves, the range gets tighter and tighter, like something is being squeezed, compressed. And anyone who studies market patterns knows that compression zones do not last forever. When a coiled spring is released, it moves fast and it moves hard. The technical indicators that professional traders use, things like the RSI, the MACD, Bollinger Bands, I know these sound complicated, but all you need to understand is that they are tools that measure momentum and pressure in a market. And right now, all of these tools are giving the same signal for silver. The pressure is at a breaking point. And the 4-day window we are talking about corresponds to a critical period before the next major options, expiration and commodity settlement cycle, a period when markets often make their biggest moves because large financial players are forced to either cover their positions or double down. In plain English, the big money is being forced to make a decision very soon. And when big money moves, prices move with it. Now, here is where this story connects back to someone like Daniel, or maybe someone like you. Daniel started researching silver after that lunch break scroll. He spent 3 evenings reading about it. And what he found shocked him. He found out that while he had been laughing at silver as old-fashioned, some of the world's most sophisticated institutional investors had been quietly accumulating it for months. He found out that major technology companies were signing long-term silver supply contracts because they were worried about future shortages. He found out that solar energy installations worldwide are projected to triple within the next decade, and every single solar panel requires silver, lots of it. He also found out something that most people never realize, that the silver to gold ratio, a measurement that compares how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, was sitting at historically high levels. And every time in history that ratio has stretched this far, silver has eventually snapped back and dramatically outperformed gold. Every single time. It is one of the most reliable patterns in commodity market history, and it was sitting right there, hiding in plain sight. But what stopped Daniel from acting immediately was the same thing that stops most people. Fear. Not the loud, dramatic kind of fear, the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, what if I'm wrong? What if I lose money? What if this is just hype? And that quiet fear is more financially destructive than almost anything else because it keeps people frozen at exactly the moments when movement matters most. And nobody talks about this part. Nobody tells you that the fear of being wrong costs more in the long run than actually being wrong sometimes. Because the people who never act also never grow. They just watch from the sideline as the world moves forward without them. Let me give you a reality check right here. You do not need to be rich to participate in the silver market. We're not talking about buying a vault full of bullion bars. A single ounce of silver right now costs roughly the same as a decent dinner out for 2 people. You can buy fractional amounts through ETFs, which are basically investment funds that track the price of silver. You just buy shares like you would buy anything online. And when silver goes up, your investment goes up. There are also mining stocks, companies that pull silver out of the ground, which tend to amplify the movement of silver prices. When silver goes up 10%, a well-positioned silver mining stock can go up 30 or 40%. The leverage works both ways, of course, so there's always risk. But the point is, the barrier to entry is lower than most people think. This is where everything changes for ordinary people. The story of wealth has always been told as if it belongs to someone else, as if it is for the people who already have money, the people who went to the right schools, the people who know the right things. But that story is a lie. It is a comfortable lie that keeps people passive and consuming and never questioning whether there is another way to participate. Silver, right now, in this exact moment, is a doorway that is open to almost anyone. But like all doorways, it does not stay open forever. Now, let me tell you about the global picture, because this is where the silver story gets truly extraordinary. The world is in the middle of the biggest energy transition in human history. Governments across every major economy have committed to reducing carbon emissions and shifting to renewable energy. Solar power is the fastest growing energy source on Earth. Wind turbines, electric vehicles, battery storage systems, all of it is expanding at a pace that was unimaginable just a decade ago. And all of it requires silver, massive amounts of silver. A single electric vehicle uses roughly twice as much silver as a traditional combustion engine car. A solar panel installation for a typical home uses about 20 grams of silver. Multiply that by the hundreds of millions of homes that are expected to add solar over the next 10 years. Multiply that by the EV targets set by governments from Germany to China to the United States. The demand picture for silver is not just good, it is, by some analyses, one of the most compelling commodity demand stories of the entire decade. And on the supply side, silver mines are not exactly popping up overnight. New mines take years, and sometimes a decade, to move from discovery to production. The mines that exist are aging. Output from some of the world's largest silver-producing countries has been declining. The math, when you lay it out honestly, is stark. Demand going up, supply struggling to keep pace, and prices that, despite all of this, are still trading well below their historical inflation-adjusted highs. But here's the part I want you to really sit with. In 1980, silver hit its all-time high in nominal terms. Adjusted for inflation, meaning what that price would be worth in today's money, silver would need to trade at well over $100 per ounce just to match that peak. Right now, it trades at a fraction of that. Does that guarantee it will reach those levels? No, nothing in markets is guaranteed. But it does tell you that from a historical perspective, the current price is not pricing in the industrial demand revolution that is unfolding in real time. And what happened next in Daniel's story changed everything for him. He did something small. He did not empty his savings account. He did not make some dramatic all-in bet. He took 3 months of his usual "I'll invest someday" money, the money he had been promising himself he would do something with, and he put it to work. He bought a position in a silver ETF and added a small allocation to 2 silver mining companies he had researched. Then he did something even more important. He stopped treating his financial decisions like accidents and started treating them like choices. He started paying attention. He started learning. He stopped waiting for one day. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Daniel became a millionaire overnight. That is not this story. This is not a fairy tale. But I will tell you that 6 months after that decision, his mindset around money had shifted so completely that he barely recognized his old self. He started asking different questions. He started reading different things. He started seeing the financial world not as something that happened to him, but as something he could participate in with intention. And that shift, that one shift in perspective, is worth more than any single trade or investment you will ever make. But here is the uncomfortable truth about the 4-day window we started with. Markets do not wait for people to feel ready. They do not pause while you think it over for another few weeks. The compression zone in silver is real. The industrial demand story is real. The supply constraints are real. The technical signals pointing to a near-term price movement are real. And the window for positioning before that potential move is measured not in months or weeks, but in days. This is not a permanent state of urgency. It is a specific, time-sensitive moment within a much larger trend. Think of it this way. Imagine a train is leaving the station. The long-term journey of silver, driven by decades of technological demand, is a very long journey, and there will be other trains. But right now, in this moment, one specific train is about to pull away from the platform, and the people who are already on it, or who get on it in the next 4 days, are positioned very differently from the people who stand on the platform watching it go. Most people will stand on the platform, not because they do not see the train, but because they will spend the 4 days reading, thinking, maybe watching another video, telling themselves they will do something tomorrow. And tomorrow will become next week. And next week will become, "I knew I should have done that when I heard about it." And that becomes one more chapter in the story of money that got away. And nobody talks about this part either. Nobody talks about how the cost of inaction is invisible. When you lose money on a bad trade, you feel it immediately. You see the number go down, you feel the pain, you learn the lesson. But when you miss an opportunity, there is no notification. There is no alert. There is just the quiet absence of wealth that could have been there. The invisible loss. And for most people, their financial life is full of invisible losses that they never even knew to grieve. Let me give you one more layer to this story, because I want you to leave this video with a complete picture. There is something happening in the global financial system that goes beyond silver specifically. We are living through a period of extraordinary monetary pressure. Interest rates have been rising and falling in cycles that are confusing even professional economists. Government debt levels around the world are at historic highs. The US dollar, which has been the world's reserve currency for decades, is facing questions about its long-term dominance that would have seemed unthinkable 20 years ago. Several major economies are quietly working to settle trade in currencies other than the dollar. Central banks in countries like China, India, and Russia have been buying gold at record rates. And silver follows gold's trajectory, typically with more volatility and more upside. This is the macro backdrop. And against that backdrop, hard assets, things with real physical existence and real industrial utility, become increasingly attractive. Not because someone told you to buy them, but because when paper money feels uncertain, things that are real feel like safety. Silver is both an industrial metal and a monetary metal. It has been used as money for thousands of years. And in a world where digital transactions, debt, and financial complexity are making more and more ordinary people feel disconnected from real value, silver represents something tangible, something you can hold, something that has intrinsic worth independent of any government's decision. Now here is the thing I want you to do before this video ends. Do not just watch this and nod along. Do not file this away in the interesting but irrelevant to my life folder in your brain. Because the biggest enemy of your financial growth is not lack of information. You are literally consuming financial information right now. The biggest enemy is the gap between knowing and doing, between understanding and acting. You do not have to invest in silver today. I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do with your money. That is a personal decision that depends on your situation, your risk tolerance, and your goals. What I am here to tell you is that the habit of showing up, paying attention, and treating your financial life as something that deserves your active engagement is the single most powerful thing you can do. Not next year, not when things calm down, now. Because here is the final reality shock of this entire video. 5 years from now, you will either look back at this period, this moment of industrial transformation, monetary uncertainty, and compressed silver prices, and say, I was paying attention during that time and I made decisions accordingly. Or you will look back and say, I heard about it, I watched the videos, I understood what was happening, and I still did not do anything. And both of those outcomes are a choice. One is just a harder choice to make in the moment, even though it leads somewhere better. Daniel, the guy from our story, is not rich. But he is no longer standing still. He checks his investments, he reads about the markets, he has started a small emergency fund for the first time in his adult life. He has learned what a portfolio is and why diversification matters. He has started asking his employer about retirement contribution matching, free money that was sitting there unclaimed because he never asked. None of these are dramatic transformations. But added together, they represent the difference between a financial life that moves and one that stays frozen. Silver might be the catalyst for you, like it was for him, or it might just be the video that finally made you take the whole subject seriously. Either way, you're not the same person you were 19 minutes ago. You have been shown things that most people in your life will never look at. You have heard the industrial demand story. You have understood the supply pressure. You have felt the urgency of the 4-day window. You have seen how the macro picture connects to something as simple as a small monthly investment. You have understood why the invisible cost of inaction is the most expensive thing most people never pay attention to. What you do with that is now entirely up to you. Because the market does not care about your feelings, your hesitation, or your reasons for waiting. The clock on this specific window is ticking. And whether you act on silver today or simply decide to become the kind of person who pays attention to moments like this, both of those are better than going back to scrolling and forgetting everything you just heard. The world is changing fast. The energy transition is real. The demand for silver is not a prediction. It is already happening in factories and solar farms and electric vehicles right now as you watch this. The supply constraints are not theoretical. They are documented in mining reports and industrial surveys. The technical signals pointing to a near-term move are measurable and visible to anyone who looks. Everything is in place. The only question left is whether you are going to be the kind of person who sees an open door and walks through it, or the kind who watches it close and wishes they had moved sooner. That decision, like all the most important financial decisions in your life, belongs entirely to you. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial truths are coming next.